We're bombarded with messages about embracing failure, learn from your failures, embrace your failure. However, failure is such a strong word. Failure is associated with some of the worst things that can happen in our life. Think about when you were a child. If you failed a grade, that meant you were repeating a grade, and everyone in the town knew that you were a failure. It's a hard stigma to overcome. When you're an adult, if you fail at your job, you could lose your job, and everyone's going to know you lost your job because you didn't perform well, because you were a failure at your job. And wrong, there's a lot of learning that can come out of this, but the learning is lost when you have that emotional baggage and are trying to overcome that. As well, people don't want to try failure, understandably, because of the weight that's associated with it and the risk of being labeled a failure. So the question becomes, how can we embrace the failure? How can we, reframe it in a way that you actually get the benefits of the learning without the emotional baggage? And to me, I think one of the biggest ways to do that is to not fail, to start with. I've been working with my son a lot, helping him learn to build robots and code them. And what you can do is we could build the robot, we could build all the code, test it at the end, and you know what? It's gonna fail big time. We spend a lot of work, put a lot of energy into it. Built the code, but it's just not going to work. Is he going to want to dig through all those problems, after spending hours building everything? He's not. He's going to be overwhelmed with it and probably discouraged. So what happens when we break it down to smaller steps? What happens when we test the robot? When we do a little bit and we test it, we now have a small little thing. We're just trying to learn to turn it 90 degrees. We're going to test that. Didn't work. Why not? We have a small little bit that we can work on. We can learn from our mistakes in that sense, as opposed to the big, so much stuff went wrong, we're overwhelmed. So think about that with yourself and with what you're doing. Can you break what you're doing down into smaller chunks? Can you do it in a safe space, in an environment where you're not going to have those huge pitfalls? Can you reframe it and call it a test or an experiment or a trial or a prototype? Words which are associated with it's not going to work. You are learning from it. If you're doing a pilot or you're doing an experiment with a small, safe group, you're going to embrace the learning. You're going to go at it from a standpoint of, I want to learn what's going on here. And you're not going to embrace or feel that failure aspect of it, because failure was always going to happen. It was always not going to work. That, in my opinion, is how you learn from failure. It's reframing it so it's not a failure at all that you're going to do.